Oh, big screen me. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our virtual farm tour. We are so excited to have you here with us today, learning about regenerative agriculture and sustainability and agroecology. And these are some of the ways we navigate our farming. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself again for folks who are just joining. My name is Rianne. I'm 21 Acres Administrative Assistant. We're super glad to have you here today. And today we're going to be walking around the farm with Jess Chandler, our restoration specialist, or wetland restoration specialist. I can't read today. And Anthony Reyes. And Anthony is our lead farmer, and he is filming Jess today and might chime in and fill in for some questions. So yeah, we're really glad we're here today, and we're going to get this tour started in just a moment, but I want to start by saying a couple things. So first, I'd like to let everybody know that we do encourage discussion and participation on these live tours, and we want to hear from you. If you're curious, this is a really great time to ask questions about the farm and any processes that go on here, especially in January, when you would think there's nothing happening on the farm. There is so much that is happening, and a lot of building for the new season happens now. So there's great stuff to learn today. There are appropriate pausing times for Q&A after and throughout the tour as Jess leads you through the farm. So you can use the chat feature to ask questions and chat with each other. I'm going to be in there kind of stoking participation and just hanging out in the chat. So feel free to share questions there, and I will share them to Jess. We'll ask that everybody remains muted unless you're asking a question or engaging, just to minimize the background noise, and everyone is muted right now, so that's great. But unmute yourself if you want to engage. We will be sharing this to YouTube, I want to say. Your faces won't be on YouTube, but your voices may be, and so will your questions. So just keep that in mind as we go on the tour. We like to share these to YouTube so you can catch up and revisit some of the things you'll learn today as well. So I'll give a bit about a background about 21 Acres for those who don't know. 21 Acres is a living laboratory which serves to educate our communities around climate change and how to participate in climate action by promoting and building resilient food systems that are rooted in agroecology, regenerative farming, sustainable land stewardship, as you will see today, and adopting sustainable living and building practices. 21 Acres is located in Woodinville, Washington, on ancestral lands of indigenous nations, including the Duwamish, the Stillaguamish, and Coast Salish peoples. We acknowledge these nations as the original stewards of this land, and we honor both the land itself and the Coast Salish people, past and present. And thank you for heeding this message and taking a moment to honor the land with us and to walk around the farm and learn how we're trying to steward this land for future generations. So we really appreciate you being here today. Without further ado, I'm going to put this to Jess and Anthony, and I'll be in the chat box.
Awesome. Well, welcome guys to the 21 Acres Farm. I'm Jess, and Anthony's behind the camera. I guess we'll just start off by saying that 21 Acres is located on a historic wetland, and we are, okay, sorry, yeah. So we're on a historic wetland, and this area was logged, and we've basically been farming it for about 120 years. We've got a green building, we've got a market in which we kind of connect with the local food system, and then we have all of our acreage back here, which we have in production or we have in restoration. I guess one thing I'll start out by saying is this is my first farm tour, so be gentle with me. I'm so excited to be here and to show you guys what's going on at the farm. It is the middle of winter and it's a chilly day. So we're gonna do what we can and show you the things that are happening. And I know that most people think that things really wouldn't be going on right now, but we've got a greenhouse that we just put together. So I'm really excited to show you that and take you through some of our wetland spaces, which we've been stewarding for many years to have them help support our farming practice. So I guess maybe we can start by kind of introducing some of the big concepts of the tour. one of the things that we really focus on in how we steward our land is agroecology. And this is kind of the lens in which we view everything we do here on the farm. So agroecology, by definition, is just basically an ecological approach to farming. But what's so cool about agroecology is it really encompasses all these other systems that come into play when you think about farming. So it isn't just, having conservation spaces on your farm, but it's also the financial systems, the political systems. You have, environmental justice and everything in between. So it's really kind of a way of bringing in all these other players as well as all these other processes and kind of connecting it to your farming practice to make it the most, making it rooted in these like really important systems that kind of influence everything we do in everyday life. Another concept that I wanted to talk about was soil health, and we'll be talking about that more as we go out to the fields, but healthy soil is in the root of everything we do here on our farm. We see soil as one of our most important resources that we try to steward as much as possible, and food for us is just a byproduct of being soil farmers. And the last thing is land stewardship. So this is just how we care for our land, and we think in the way that is sustainable, that this land will be here to be fruitful for years to come. And I guess it'd be a good time to ask if there's anything that people are interested in and that you really want us to spotlight, because this is totally a casual conversation and you can just put it in the chat box and let us know, and we'll make sure that we kind of touch on it as we go through our farm tour. So I'll kind of let that populate for a second and see if anyone has any specific burning questions or ideas.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, if you all would be comfortable, it'd be a great time to test out our Zoom skills. If you could write in the chat something you're super, super curious to learn about, that would be awesome.
And maybe we'll start walking over to the wetland while that happens.
Yeah.
All right.
And do bear with us because we're definitely outside. There is no Wi-Fi, so sometimes the cell service kind of picks up and drops off, but should be perfect. It looks good right now.
Awesome.
So we have some answers coming in. Anna shares they're interested to learn about types of trees. Perfect for you. Wendy Jordan, hi Wendy, also thank you for joining us again, is sharing agroecology, how to explain that in terms that the average person can understand and perform in their lives. So that was a really great introduction to agroecology, Jess. I thought that was really perfect. If you want to expand on that.
Sure thing, sure thing.
And
great.
We have one more that I know you'll like. How do you decide which section of the land to restore since it was all originally wetland? I'm gonna log these questions down, and if we forget to address them, I'll shoot them at you.
Love it. All great questions. Okay, well, we'll start here in the wetland. This is one of my favorite parts of the property. And first, I'll just say, like, the reason that restoration is part of our farming practice, we consider restoration farming on the 21 acres property. And the reason we feel this way is because wetlands provide, and all of our restoration areas, which aren't just wetlands, some of them are more meadow spaces, other buffer spaces. Some of them are riparian corridors, so basically, ditches or streams where water goes through. These areas provide ecosystem services. So if you don't know what an ecosystem service is, this is like the tenet in which my whole job operates. But it basically is any benefit that we receive from nature. So a good example would be like oxygen. Trees make it, we breathe it in, it makes life possible. But another example that is maybe more rooted in the context of the farm would be pollination. So pollination is free. The bees and all the insects and bats and things that do it for us, they just do it, and we don't have to ask them to do it, they just do it. And so it's an ecosystem service. And so all these areas that aren't actually in production, that we are investing time and energy in restoring, help us in some way. And even if the results aren't super tangible at first, we feel it and we know that it's happening every time we see like a native bee pollinating a vegetable. And then I guess I'll backtrack by also saying, if you don't know what restoration is, it is basically the practice of restoring any degraded landscape. And degraded is pretty general, but for us, that basically means like an area that's been taken over by invasives. I hate to point that, it makes me so mad when I see them, but like this, for instance, this Himalayan blackberry is one of them. So that's one way, and we're restoring this land because this invasive plant has come in, so now we need to remove it so that the other native plants that are supposed to be here can thrive and not be outcompeted by the invasive. Another way that we are restoring, you know, a degraded landscape, pretty much when humans came in and logged this area, we degraded it. And so by replanting trees and populating it with native shrubs, we're starting to help restore these systems that provide ecosystem services. And I think it might be a good time to kind of plug into why we choose certain areas for restoration versus other areas on the farm. Well, a lot of it has to do with, first of all, you see an area and you can tell that it wants to be a wetland because of the plants that are growing there, if there's water present, and the soil type. Those are like the main three tenets that help restoration ecologists basically point out, or wetland specialists, whether or not an area wants to be a wetland. And to be honest, those areas just aren't conducive to farming. We could try and farm it as much as we want to. What was that? Oh, it's the plants that are there. So usually emergent species. And those are plants that like to be in water. The presence of water. So if there's just water on the surface of the landscape, I mean, it might want to be a wetland, not always. And then the soil type. And that's kind of the three parameters. But yeah, some areas just aren't appropriate for farming. If we try and farm it, we're going to have to put in extra inputs. We're going to be fighting what the landscape wants to do anyway. Our like, for instance, if we tried to farm our wetland areas, they would be covered in water until like it was way too late to have already put in our new plants for the season. And so it just doesn't make sense. We're basically fighting an uphill battle, and we can get more benefits to our agricultural spaces by just letting those wetlands be wetlands and be adjacent to our farms. Because remember, those wetlands they house animals that are like, you know, eating pests on our farm. They house animals that are pollinating, that are fertilizing our farm. So they just benefit us more by being what they are. And maybe we'll start walking out to some other wetland areas. This is our most mature wetland area, but we have about 6 acres of conservation space on the farm, and they're in various stages of restoration. Some are at the very beginning, we just broke ground. Others are mature, such as this one. And so let's go kind of pop out and see what else there is to see.
Thank you so much, Jess, and thank you, Anthony, too, for sharing that question. We just got another from Wendy, wondering if we leave the wetlands to be wetlands and they also have invasive species there, do you leave those two? I think we'd probably try to also pull them out and keep the wetland as healthy as possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it gets kind of existential because it's like, or, you know, it depends on your philosophy, but so yeah, we definitely, unfortunately, humans are just, we're not unfortunately, but we're like integrated into nature. We are a part of nature. And so we do have a place in stewarding these natural systems. And even if there were invasive species there, first of all, humans bring most invasive species around, at least from reed canary grass, which is like, I think from England. So humans definitely brought that here. And so it's up to us to steward this land by getting rid of them. And, you know, the question of like, what is native and what is invasive? It's like, there are some invasive plants that can be native and they grow out of control and they basically make it like a homogeneous zone where only they can thrive, which takes away biodiversity. And in our case too, it messes with our hydrology. So it's really important, I think, and it depends on every single landscape that you're working with. And I think that's another tenet of agroecology, is really looking at the place that you are, and what's best for our parcel is to deal with the invasives so that we can have more biodiversity, if that answers your question.
That was great. I really appreciate how you pulled in, like, since we are responsible, we're tethered to nature. So if we probably brought the invasives everywhere. So it would make sense that it's our our duty to pick them up, no matter how painful and irritating. We have a lot of invasive species on campus, as Jess was mentioning, and maybe there will be time to talk about it. They're currently standing in a really great area that we willow staked. Would you?
Yeah.
Was that on your agenda to talk about?
It is. I was just going to highlight this area because we just did a large willow staking project, and a willow stake is essentially like a piece of a willow that you cut. Anyone can do this at home, by the way. It's pretty cool. But willows are really fast growing, and what we're combating in this area is reed canary grass. And reed canary grass has made this entire, I think it's like about an acre, maybe an acre or two, have basically taken over this entire area. And so it's the only thing that grows here. It holds water in its roots and makes it really hard for anything else to thrive. And so we've come in with these willow stakes because it's one of the only things that grow fast enough to outcompete the reed canary. And hopefully when they grow up, they will outshade the reed canary. By the way, I didn't invent any of this stuff. I am riding on the backs of giants, and really it's the only thing, and we've tried a few ways to get rid of reed canary, but ultimately this is the tried and true way, is to just shade it out. And you could shade it out by putting silage tarp down, which is something that I did further on, and we'll go look at that. But this is kind of just like a total, like a well-used restoration method is this staking. So these will probably start to like grow up in the next 5 years. They'll be large enough to start to combat the reed canary by blocking out light. And then once they're bigger, we can start to plant in other trees. And I know there was a question about trees, and I do love plants, and I am a horticulturalist, but I'm not a tree master. But it makes it easy on this property because basically the tree species we have the most of is cottonwood. It's everywhere. And that's another way we know it's a wetland, because cottonwoods like the water. And so most of the trees you're going to see on this property are cottonwoods. We have some hawthorns, and there are some very young conifers that I've planted, but most of it is just cottonwoods and some willows too. But anyway, yeah, we'll stay tuned for the staking project. If you follow us on social media, we're going to be kind of doing updates as the stakes grow in, and kind of monitoring not only how fast they grow, but how that's going to affect our hydrology in this area. And hopefully we could start to get water to stop ponding here and kind of run through the property. So yeah, I think maybe next stop we'll go to the silage tarp.
Before you go, Anthony, do you mind just showing a close-up of the willow stakes? Because they blend into the grass, but they're everywhere. It's a little hard to see on the camera sometimes. But perfect, yeah. So there's stakes, you could kind of see them trailing off to the left whenever there's a flag. Those are everywhere in the property, and they are live staked. It's pretty awesome. Or is live stake the right term, Jess? I might have
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So yeah, a lot of restoration work happens in the fall. And this kind of ties into soil health, which is something we'll go into more, but winter is a time for planning and monitoring. It's not so great for working into the soil because you start to do more damage than any good you're doing. So we kind of want to let our soil rest this time of year. Most of the restoration and farming is on hiatus for the next month until we start in the greenhouse, which I think we're going to start planting in the greenhouse next week. So let's go out here. Anthony, you have the good shoes on? Okay, cool. Nice. All right. We also had pigs out on this land that were working to root up some of the reed canary roots and kind of break up the root mats. And they had an impact in not letting the reed canary go to seed, which is it's so hard because it goes to seed and then it lives, like the seed stays viable for years and years and just like waits till it has an opportunity to grow again. So they kind of broke it up, and they hopefully kept it from coming back as fast. And then they also like prevented it from going to seed, which is always the name of the game. We've done some mowing, we've done the willow stakes. Here's our silage tarp. I've had this on for about a year now. I think next fall I'm going to plant into it. The silage tarp not only shades it out, which is its main function, which is why it has this like black on the top and then the white on the bottom, but it also keeps it from getting sun. I also think in the winter when there's not, or in the summer when there's not as much water flow, it kind of helps dry out the roots and makes them less viable for when we take the tarp off. So yeah, I mean, it's made quite the difference actually. Pretty excited about the progress on this bad boy. Maybe Anthony could pan to the South Wetland. We cleared that this year with our all-star volunteers. I'm going to make a shameless plug that if you're interested in getting involved, our volunteer program, probably going to be starting up in early spring, is a great way to come and interact with our campus and do all kinds of really cool restoration projects.
Yes, we love our volunteers so much. There's,
all right.
I appreciate your plug. We miss everybody. We have a COVID safe volunteering. If anyone in Washington on the call is interested, I will include that in a little email follow-up with some links to explore topics we spoke about today.
Nice. I am going to take us into the greenhouse because it is the most exciting thing happening on the property right now. Aaron might be in there. Sorry, Aaron, I'm coming in. All right. So yeah, our farm team constructed this, but mostly Aaron and Anthony, who are farmers on the property, made this beautiful structure. This is going to be the hardening off zone. And here's our sliding doors. We've got these vents. And from what I understand about the vents, they have a wax seal, which causes them to open when it's warm and close when it's cold, which is passive and takes no energy. I love that. And then here is our greenhouse. They just finished with the tables yesterday and things are looking pretty spicy. Note the irrigation system, which is going to be set on a timer. It's just another way to conserve water. It was designed by Anthony and I can't wait to see it go. But yeah, so they're going to be on like micro spray emitters, right? And we kind of like the amount of time they run is to conserve water. So we'll basically do the calculations and then figure out how long they need to go to get all the plants wet while using as little water as possible and being as like a direct as they can to get the plants what they need. And then any questions about the greenhouse before we kind of bop over to the fields and talk more about soil and agroecology? Also, Aaron, you want to give a wave?
There's Aaron. Well, wait, if anyone has questions about the greenhouse, I can't believe you all did this by yourselves, by hand. It's amazing. You take on many roles here. And at one of our farm tours, it was mentioned that the farm is they're not only farmers, they're not only like soil health experts, but they're also craftsmen and mechanics and craftswomen and craftspeople and yeah, a lot of people or a lot of hats.
Yeah, farmers have to put on a lot of hats and it's kind of par for the course and it's a part of the job that you have to be kind of a Renaissance person to be able to kind of sustain yourself in this industry, but it's pretty powerful. And one of the things I like best is we work on a team. So like, I don't have to know everything or be able to do everything because I can just look over at Aaron and Aaron can probably help me out. So that's kind of how it goes here on our farm.
All right, let's talk about the fields. And yeah. we do have a couple of questions about the watering. Wendy, we're wondering if watering from above promotes fungus growth, and if that's how we may deal with that if that happens in the greenhouse.
Well, if you think about it, all plants are watered from above because of rain. So, yeah, in a greenhouse, you're going to be like, have a more of a tropical condition and have more humidity, but plants like humidity often. And it doesn't tend to create too much of a fungal problem. We have pests and we have other, problems with plants, but that isn't really one that we worry so much about.
That's true. I guess it's getting them used to.
What? Oh yeah, and Anthony's going to add something on to that.
Let's see. We can't hear him yet.
Can you hear me right now?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I guess the thing I would add is
No, is it not working?
It kind of
Here.
sounds fuzzy.
Why don't you tell me and I'll
The big thing with fungal growth is going to be the airflow.
yes.
And so that's why we have these vents up here that will control the moisture and allow that to leave.
Okay.
And we also have these side rolling,
Mm.
the sides will roll up, so that'll increase the airflow as well.
Yeah, and Anthony just spoke to something that is totally awesome and true. So basically it's, you can have as much water as you want as long as you have airflow. And that's like as much as like how close the plants are together. And then also just making sure that like, that's why we have these vents to have air be able to come in and be able to control the temperature in here and control the airflow. But we also have these, which we can roll up the sides to make sure we're having air come in this way as well. So this whole greenhouse has been designed with plant health in mind.
Awesome.
Nice. Thanks, Aaron. Rolling that up. Great.
Thank you.
Should we walk over to the field?
Yeah.
All right. So there's not a lot, as I said, growing right now, but I figure you guys came to see the farm. So let's go look at what our fields look like in this time of year. And I guess that's not true. There is stuff going on. It's just not your basic crop rotation. Instead, we've got cover crop growing in our fields. And so it's a sight to behold. Let's go check it out. Right now, we're kind of in our production zone. So this is where we keep our tools, and we've got our wash pack, which is where we process our produce that's coming up. And this area is totes profesh. So this is where we do most of our packaging up and weighing and, quality control. All right.
Such a beautiful day, even though it's just mystical looking.
Oh yeah, it's like classic Washington out here. It's
classic.
Actually, I'm warming up finally. So yeah, all of our fields are in cover crop right now. And cover crop is a huge component of our farming practice, our land stewardship. And it is totally paramount for soil health. And we do it because, not only is it good to put cover crop in because it's kind of protecting from erosion, because we have a lot of water that's passing through surface water. And then we also have some wind that comes through and will take up our topsoil. And topsoil is a finite resource, right? It takes 500 to 1,000 years to create even 1 inch of topsoil. So it's something to be stewarded and protected. Sometimes I feel like people don't think about it as one of those main resources we need to protect, like water, for instance, but it is. It's so important, and all of our food comes from soil. So it's really one of those things that's worth stewarding. So some of the ways in which we do that are cover crop and trying not to deplete our soil of nutrients by rotating which veggies we're growing on each block each year. We try and use we take soil tests to really manage how we're amending our soil so that we're not adding too many nutrients or not enough nutrients. And, soil science is this crazy web. So you can go in, there's so much to talk about when it comes to soil, but I'm going to just kind of bring it down to its most brass tacks. So soil, what makes up soil is the chemical, biological, and physical elements. So physical elements, what we have here, I think, is Erlenmont loam. And you can't really change the physical elements of your soil. It is kind of what it is. And you don't really want to be adding so many amendments that you change the physical properties of your soil anyway, because you're not really working with what you have, which means you're not really doing it in a sustainable way. What you've got is what you've got. And then for chemical, for us, we're mostly focused on the pH. And that's really important because, agricultural crops really only grow in a certain range of pH. And so we'll check that in our soil tests each year, and we'll usually amend it with lime and sweeten it up because, in the Pacific Northwest, our soil tends to be a little bit on the acidic side. And then biology, that's about the life, everything that lives in soil that makes it alive. So, you got your nematodes and your worms and your, bacterias and your fungi, and all of that is contributing to this crazy complex web of life. Soil is so biodiverse. It's one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet, if not the most. So you gotta love soil for that. And I guess how we define healthy soil is its ability to maintain life. So I don't know if we have any questions about cover cropping or soil.
Yes, we do.
Yahoo.
I was just typing to Wendy, you've been asking such great questions. Thank you so much. Wendy is wondering what specifically is planted right now. Is it a diverse mix? And how do you prevent them from growing when you're ready to move on?
Great questions. So we have about 4 types of cover crop in. We have rye, we have vetch, we have buckwheat, and we have a pea mix, and barley pea, sorry. And so these are like, a lot of these are edible crops, and we choose them for different reasons depending on what was grown in the block last year. And they'll do different functions, right? Like some are more nitrogen fixing, others make it like, I think rye, there's a word for it, I can't remember, but allelopathic. So rye is allelopathic, right? Allelopathic? Okay, I just butchered that. But basically it creates an environment where like it suppresses the growth of other plants. And so what we want the cover crop for is basically what it's doing in the soil, not what it's doing above the soil. So we terminate it before it can like fully grow out. And then basically once it broadcasts seeds, it'll just be there forever. So we want to terminate it before it does that. And we want to mix it back into the soil. And that way we can really get all of the benefits of having it there in the first place. So we terminate it early, if that answers your question. And sometimes when you don't do that, you'll see catastrophic consequences for years to come. An example of that are the turnips that were planted a long time ago. I think there's like a few right here. We didn't terminate this a few years ago, and now we will forever have these turnips, which are edible and great, except for they're not growing where we want them to grow. And so, you know, farming is all about controlling the areas, stewarding, controlling your areas of land. So if you have like something like this, at this point, it's like a weed for us. We don't want it. I probably shouldn't even throw it back. It's a weed. Let's get it out of the growing fields. Okay.
Okay, wait. So I didn't realize that. I know that the history and legacy of the turnips being everywhere on the farm, but I didn't realize this part about the history, that it was a cover crop.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was a mistake. You know, we all make them sometimes. And yeah, as far as what's growing, well, we already mentioned the cover crops that are growing. We have some crops in that are just kind of holding on. They're not in active growth phases right now. They're just kind of chilling until the sun comes up. So just the kale really, and we've got like some mustards and stuff that can handle the cold. Any other questions about soil? And then I might try and tackle that agroecology question. And I know Anthony's gonna pop in with some input because he is all about that agroecology life.
Yes, Anthony is brilliant, and I'm so upset about the microphone thing because I wish you could hear him speak more. But we do have. Let me just check on questions. Are turnips perennials? Because I too didn't realize turnips were perennial. I thought that you would have to seed them every time, but
well, they're self-seeding. Like most plants will have a mechanism to allow them to keep producing life, right? So they like grow the root, then they grow a flower, and the flower goes to seed, and then so it's more that it's self-seeding. Most plants have dialed in and evolved to figure out how to continue themselves on, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like we lost a bit of service. Oh, never mind. You're back. Sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll walk towards the hedgerow, just because I like it over there. And we'll go towards the hedgerow. By the way, just to kind of root you in context, the Sammamish River is right there. A lot of historic wetlands make great farmland, and we've actually gotten rid of a lot of wetlands for farming because there's all the flooding, the seasonal flooding that happens from rivers create like great soils, and the floodplains are like just like wonderful places to farm, and they're close to the transportation of being able to put your crops on a boat before we had cars and all that stuff. But yeah, that tree line right there is the Sammamish River. And so it's really close. Everything we do on our farm affects the river ecology. So we're always trying to make sure that we don't have extra inputs that get into our waterways and then pollute the Sammamish and make it hard for salmon to thrive. So if you're from the Pacific Northwest, then you know that like salmon is the thing, the reason for the season. So just wanted to kind of highlight the proximity to our neighbors. Like nothing you do on a parcel of land is in a vacuum. And so you have to just be really careful about how what we do in our practices here affects our neighbors as well as like the greater regional area. I think I'm going to roll over to the pollinator hedgerow and maybe try and touch on agroecology. So the question was, how can we like kind of break it down to make it like for a person who's maybe never heard of the concept before,
That's
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty new to the school of thought, and it's so complex because it literally includes everything. But you know, boiling it back to that original definition, like an ecological approach to farming. So like, what is that? Basically, it's farming with all these other systems in mind. And it's not only like a practice, because like there are agroecological practices, but there are also, it's also like a philosophy in its own right. And it really centers indigenous and traditional ways of knowing and experiential ways of knowing. So it really kind of brings everyone to the table. It's not just people who went to school to learn how to farm, but like it includes everyone and what we all know about the land that we're on, and it's hyper local. So my agroecological approach to farming, this parcel in Woodinville, Washington, is going to be completely different than your agroecological approach to farming in California. So you're really working with what you have. And again, ecology isn't just natural systems. Like there are like people ecology. So you're bringing in the food system, environmental justice, financial systems. You're bringing in like, you know, land politics. It really kind of starts to layer all these different systems in order to help the person that's stewarding the land do it in the most responsible way possible. And I know that's kind of like parroting what I said before. It's just like so much to take in, and maybe Anthony has something to add that might make it more streamlined, but it's just like, it's everything, you know, it's everything. I don't know, do you have anything, Anthony? Nothing that'll, yeah, it's just, so start with an ecological approach to farming as its basic definition, and then go from there. Because yeah, it's not just about the farm, it's about the area around the farm and the context that the farm is in. So I'm gonna walk out. How much time do we have left, by the way? Because I'm in full ramble mode.
Oh, no worries. I was gonna say
okay.
We have 23 minutes left.
Great, okay. So now we're walking past field block A and B.
Is anything growing right now on the farm?
Got these collards here, which are looking tasty-licious.
Yeah.
And some kale. Maybe I'll demonstrate how one eats the kale.
Yummy.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy is saying that she really appreciates what you said about the fact that it's hyper local, and you have to consider all the pieces in play: the food, the money, the people, the politics, and how these all influence your specific space. Absolutely.
Yeah, because like in the end, the goal is just to have like a better and just world with a planet that thrives, and everyone is included in that. And so it's just like everything. It's like you look at the thing itself, and you have to kind of include how many things that the thing touches. So yeah, I don't know. We love agroecology as a lens because it tends to just set us in the right direction if we're really using it as a tool. And regenerative practices are a part of agroecology. We use regenerative practices on this farm all the time, and that's so they're not the same thing, but they work together really well. So I just want to highlight the hedgerow because I like the hedgerow. The hedgerow is providing crazy ecosystem services for us by creating habitat for pollinators and forage for pollinators. So everyone loves honeybees. I do too. I love honey. But I am always thinking about native pollinators because there's so many of them, and native bee populations in particular are struggling. And so we just want to make sure that they do so much work for us and all we had to do is plant a plant. And anyone can do that at their home too. If you put out, and it doesn't have to be natives even. If you put out some flowers, like the bees will find it, and that helps bolster native pollinator populations. We do have an apiary on campus, so we use both methods. Our apiaries also do a lot of heavy lifting for us. And in the winter, it's kind of trickier. So we let's go like roll out over there, Anthony, and look at the apiary. We have about 4 on campus, and they're spread out so we can get maximum like pollinator efficiency. And we have an amazing bee club who comes in weekly to care for and steward our apiary. We have to insulate the hives in the winter to make sure that they don't die and protect them from predatory wasp species. Oh, there's some birds in the hedgerows, looking good. Okay, I'm walking out towards them.
And we hopefully we'll regain the camera again. It just happens sometimes on the farm. Boom.
All right, here's one of our apiaries. Yeah, Nan does an amazing job. She's a wizard, a bee wizard. So yeah, we have this insulation around them. These are just honeybees that they go and they're right next to the field. So they just go and pollinate right next door. And yeah, this cork is also for insulation. And then we have this like to protect them from a lot of rainfall as well as snow. And so it takes a lot of stewardship to maintain our hives throughout the winter. And in fact, it's really common to lose hives if you don't kind of go through all the effort to insulate them and protect them and feed them during the winter. So there's our hives. I don't know if anyone has questions about bees. I may or may not be able to answer. It's not my specialty, but I do like them.
Yeah. I really liked, Anthony had a cool little shot of the sign of the pollinator habitat. Do you want to show us again really quick?
I think she's talking about that. The pollinator habitat right there.
I liked that shot. That was nice.
Yeah, we have a ton of pollinator. We have a pollinator garden, pollinator hedgerows. We do pollinator counts once a year. And that's kind of just like folded into our restoration practice. Like I said, it's not all wetlands, but we're also restoring areas that can host a variety of species that do a variety of things for us. So I think I'm going to beeline it to the compost because I just decided to start calling myself the compost queen this last week. So just want to go talk about that. What?
That was a great segue. Beeline it to the compost.
Oh.
I want to share that we had one question as well.
Nice.
Uh-oh. Sorry. I'll spotlight back again. We had one question from Lily when we were back by the kale. Lily was wondering what is being dug up next to the kale because they spotted the shovel handle.
I'm just gonna say sometimes things get left out on the farm. Oh no, the artichokes. Oh yeah. Sorry, I was wrong. Jerusalem artichokes. So they're really awesome. I guess, are they a native plant? Oh, but they've been used as an indigenous food source in other areas and here too. Yeah, they're just like a starchy underground root that we have as kind of, they serve double for us because not only are the roots edible and delicious and nutritious, but the flowers are like really huge and bees love them. So we have them on the edge of our field. And that was I think the last thing that we did a harvest of was our Jerusalem artichokes. But they spread like crazy, but they're really good. So if you've never had them, I mean, you wouldn't find them at a normal conventional grocery store, but if you head to a local farm market or participate in a CSA, you might see them. And so I encourage you to try them because they're pretty good. Hard on the stomach a little bit, but really good.
They can make you a little gassy.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Artichokes, as the soil team calls them. Okay, we're making our way around the buffer to the compost. So the video might get a little in and out. It's a good time for questions, but I can ramble on about our buffers if we don't have any questions.
Okay, I did want to share something for anyone who isn't looking in the chat. Wendy has a really great shout out. Camano Island Bees has a beekeeping 101 workshop starting on Monday. So that's really cool. Shout out to our local communities, pollinators. Um,
Yep.
and the sunchokes, they're going to be sold in the market.
We've had them in the market before, but we're not digging right now. We're not really digging into our soil because it's not great for our soil health.
Mm.
And we've already kind of passed that point, right, Anthony? Yeah, and it's frozen today. So when the land is frozen, we try not to mess with it.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
All right, we're going north on our property towards the front where our LEED certified building is. You should join Barry on the building tour if you're interested in green energy and green technologies. He's the best. And that's on alternate Saturdays. Rhiannon can fill that in the chat. But yeah, so we're on our buffers right now. And this area was just blackberry, and we've planted in with a bunch of different types of trees. And we've done this because we are trying to create animal corridors throughout our property. And we just want to encourage all the animals to come live on our farm. And so we want to make sure one of the things that threatens species the most is the fact that all these habitats are disrupted and animals can't cross from one to another because we have roads and developments. And so like on our property, we want to make sure there's like animal highways throughout. So we have planted a bunch of stuff in the last 2 or 3 years. And we do have fences that separate from our property, but we have breaks in them and we keep the holes quite large so that birds can get through and, you know, little rabbits and things can get through. And while those animals do frustrate us sometimes, we're glad that they're here and we want to encourage them to stay. It's all part of like an encompassing land stewardship that doesn't include just what the needs of humans, but the needs of all species. And then here is our static aerated compost pile. So I'm not going to say this is perfect. We are trying it out. One of the reason for the season, the reason we did this was because we have so much blackberry. So Anthony can pan over to the other pile that hasn't been covered. That's just blackberry. We remove a ton of it from our property. And rather than taking it off our property, which to me seemed like a wasted opportunity, even though it's really hard to deal with, and anytime you put it in a pile, it can just start growing out of that pile again. So you have to steward it really carefully. But the thing is, it has a ton of carbon and nutrients, and you know, it's still got even soil on the roots from when we pulled it out. So it just feels, it's not, we want to try not to let it leave our property and instead try and create something else with it. But it's challenging because it's super carbony and like tough and thorny. And so it's like pretty hard to make good compost out of it. So what we have started doing is this pile. So it has a pipe that's connected to a blower that's connected to a solar panel. The solar panel will help give energy to the blower, which will run air through it. And air, like oxygen, is what helps things break down. It creates an aerobic process, which allows all this green and brown material to break down. And so this whole pile is essentially just blackberry, buttercup, bindweed, which are nasty weeds. And then we add muck from the goat pen, which is part of how we incorporate animals into our farm, is by using their manure. And then we also have grape musks from local wineries and some spent vegetables. And we just added into this pile. It was 6 feet tall, so that's about like this tall. So it's shrunk, but we know that it's not quite getting hot enough to break everything down. So we're gonna try and maybe add some hotter manure to it and see what that will do. It's all just an experiment. We're really proud of this pile because it's our first year doing it. And we're finally trying to find a way to deal with the invasive. So yeah, I don't know. I could like lift up the plastic maybe, but there's tons of water. So I don't know if it's worth it, but. Oh yeah, let's go look at the blower.
So proud of you all, and also incorporating the green energy into, you know, the into the pile.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, on a farm, you so rarely are gonna have like electricity and things like that. So you've got to like lean on these sustainable technologies. Otherwise, you're gonna spend more money and more time in the long run. So yeah, solar panel connects to this blower here. It's like in there. Boop. And then it goes to this pipe, and the pipe has holes in it. Yeah, oxygen makes compost happen. That's actually why you turn your compost pile at home. So if you just put a pile of weeds down, it'll eventually turn into compost, but it'll take years. So that's why you turn compost piles, is because you're putting oxygen into the system, which allows them to break down essentially. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions about compost. I don't know everything, but I do love it.
The compost queen. I love compost too.
Yeah, it's so great to make a waste product into something usable. And at this point, we have not gotten our pile hot enough to use it on the farm. It still has tons of weed seeds in it, and we'll likely spread them all over, so we cannot use them in the fields yet. But that's the whole thing about getting it hot enough, is that when you have like some really like dense nitrogen rich material like cow poop, you can get it hot enough to where like literally up to like 140 degrees or something, right, Anthony? 140? 150. Then you're killing off all the pathogens, all the weed seeds, and it has to get to that point multiple times, like 3 times, I think. Oh, do we got some hawks? Oh, a
I wish we
mating
could
dance.
see.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
there they are. If you could kind of see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are beautiful hawks in this valley. We do have a couple questions. Wondering how hot it needs to get to kill the seeds.
150 degrees. And it has to get that, reach 150 degrees for 3 days, 3 different times. So you've really got to have the right mix of green material and brown material and air to start to create that like heat that happens as things are breaking down. So the bacteria, like as things break down, the bacteria will give off heat, and then you kind of start to be able to, and then the plastic that's covering is keeping the heat in, and so that's what allows that to happen.
Thank you. And
yeah, I almost want to really quick say, like when Anthony looked at those hawks, the biodiversity thing is like so important to us on the farm. Like we love seeing all the different trophic levels. It lets me know that our restoration is working. If I see a coyote, even though like, you know, we've had trouble with coyotes in the past wanting to go after our chickens and stuff, but they're a predator, which lets me know that there is forage for that predator. And so we love to see stuff on all the different trophic levels. I want to see the worms, I want to see the fungus, I want to see the birds, I want to see the amphibians. Like the amphibians let me know that we have water and that the water is functioning in a way that allows them to reproduce. So like all these things, all these other animals that aren't really related to our farm, let us know that our farm is healthy, if that makes sense. Sorry, I decided to put that plug in.
Absolutely. No, this is what we're here for. We're here to learn about how to keep our, you know, environments and our ecosystems thriving. So thank you. We have 8 minutes left on the tour,
Okay.
and it sounds like you got to all the places you mentioned to me in the beginning, which is cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. There is one more question too about what to add to your compost pile to build heat in the compost. I know you mentioned maybe even using hotter manure and capturing that heat with the tarp.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Once the sun comes out.
Basically what's when you make a compost pile, you're trying to create, it's like a recipe. And I said the words brown and green. And so brown stands for carbon and green is nitrogen. And when I say hot, like poop has a ton of nitrogen in it. And food scraps have a ton of nitrogen in them. And like, you know, certain things, it's not so much about, well, you have to have a balance of both. You have to have the nitrogen and the carbon interacting, usually on a 30-to-1 is the ratio, 30 carbon, 1 nitrogen. You need that reaction. You need the interplay between the two to break down, create heat with the air. That's like boosting up all that bacterial processes, and then they're like, and it's them interacting, which is creating heat, if that makes sense. Right, Anthony? Would you say that's true? Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm not giving any bad information, but that's the way I understand it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was helpful.
Cool.
There, Lily is in the chat, and this just like speaks to my soul. So much blackberry behind you. How do you all keep up?
Honestly, it's just I just every day we are, I mean, this is my personal mission in life,
Yeah.
I guess. I didn't realize that when I went to school and I went through life that really all I was here to do was get rid of blackberry, but it's a good mission. I mean, we just have to stay on it. Honestly, blackberry is like pretty easy to get rid of, unlike green canary, in the sense that you just need a shovel and some tenacity and you can get rid of it. It's all about removing the root. So like right here, it's like I could cut it back and nothing will happen, but I've got to like actually dig the root out. I'm not going to do that because I don't have a shovel, so I'll just leave the root in. But it's like this little root crown is what I'm trying to get. All right, I'm coming back for you later. But yeah, so that gives you a sense.
And so blackberries are very, they're going to dominate the entire planet probably because they have so many, they have 2 or more methods of sprouting and forming. So I know that when their leaves start to, when they grow up really tall and when their leaves touch the ground, they can start to send out roots. So they
Yeah,
can
that way.
the ground and back up and down.
They've also evolved to have a delicious berry, which
Exactly.
birds eat and then poop the seeds out. By the way, just shamelessly plugging, in the summer, we tend to have people out here picking berries. And for a small donation, you can come and pick organically grown, locally sourced blackberries. And it really just helps us in our restoration efforts because it keeps the seeds from getting all over our farm. So you're kind of not only getting delicious berries for pies, but then you can also be helping us in our efforts to not have it not only just on our farm, but all over the valley. By the way, I didn't mention that this farm is in the APD, and I think it's really important to just add that context that this is in protected land, farmland in perpetuity. So King County has decided that we are only going to farm on this land. It's our zoning, which is just really important to just mention because that's kind of what protects. It's really important to protect farmland right now, and our land will be a farm for the foreseeable future.
Yes. And APD, does that stand for Agricultural Production District?
Sure does.
All right. Yeah, the that's one of the great things about restoring the wetland, of course. Like one of the many great things is if anyone has been to 21 Acres campus, you'll know that we are very close to the city, and we are kind of like a defense almost for our river, the Sammamish River there, and buffering that, and then also a defense for our farm too, because it keeps the soil from eroding, and it filters up harmful new toxic things that come from the roads. And there's a lot on our building tour that does to protect that protects the water too. Highly encourage folks to join that. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I just want to say we have 3 minutes left. So if there's any final questions for our wonderful team here, feel free. And Jess, if you would like to say some final words.
Well, I would just say if you're interested in agroecology, check out our blog. Our farmer Anthony wrote a piece on it. And I think that it helps kind of explain a little bit where I lacked. And it's just something that we're so passionate about here on the farm. And it helps kind of dictate where we go and how we do what we do. So I want to plug that. And then just say that like we see this land stewardship as climate action. And all of this, all the work we're doing is related to having a livable planet and a just food system. And so there's just so many ways to get involved. And I think that a lot of people think of climate action in this like, really specific ways, but farming can be that, and restoration definitely is that. So plant a tree and put out some flowers for your local pollinators. If you didn't get anything else from this, do that for sure.
That's so perfect. Thank you so much, Jess. And thank you, Anthony, as well. Yeah, just bringing it all back to climate action. This is one of the fastest ways that we can help repair the earth is by literally just repairing the earth and taking care of it, making sure that people support local food and get into our ecosystems.
Yeah.
No, I guess as a final, as a final thank you and goodbye, I just want to say I'm going to be following up and sending you all just a couple of resources and a thank you email, just saying sharing on a couple more topics. And yeah, if you are in Washington and you're local, please support your farmers. Check out 21 Acres Farm Market. We support a bunch of regenerative, local, organic, and basically just soil safe food producers and farmers. So we've got cheeses and teas all the way up to the sunchokes, which I think will come back in. Are they a spring crop? I meant to ask.
Just fall, I think. Yeah.
Okay. They're fall.
But next year, Thanksgiving, look out for those. But yeah, thanks for joining me on my first farm tour. I appreciate your guys' patience with me. And thanks for all your awesome questions. It was really fun and to just get